it is Laura A. Grace, and I am so excited that we are back doing our manga making process. And as you guys can see, I am with an awesome, epic writer right here. And guys, she is a script writer, and I'm really, really excited to see what she's going to be sharing with us. So let me go ahead and introduce Cindy Koepp. Hey, Cindy!
Hi, all!
Totally, can you introduce yourself and totally just let us know what are some maybe like your top 3 favorite anime or like manga, if you're able to choose, because that's like a super hard question and I don't envy you in answering it.
My name is Cindy Koepp. I'm a hat collector, critter crocheter, goofy joke teller, and writer of science fiction, fantasy, game lit, more recently neo-pulp, and teacher resources.
Awesome. That is really, really awesome.
For top 3 anime or manga, that you have to go back into the deep history of the universe to find 2 of them. The first, it's been eons, but Pokemon was the thing for quite some time. I was teaching 2nd grade and then 4th grade when Pokemon really had its heyday and was the thing of the universe. So I became fairly conversant in those early versions just to keep up with my class.
That is awesome.
On Saturday mornings, when I was scoring 1.5 million papers, I would watch Yu-Gi-Oh! And several other things, just to keep me mildly entertained while I'm scoring a gazillion multiplication tests and spelling tests and who knows what else. So that I also became fairly conversant in that. That was not quite as huge as Pokemon in the 4th grade group, but there were the aficionados, and they were very amused that I knew exactly what they were talking about. Much more recently, though, catching up to relatively modern history, Avatar: The Last Airbender was the thing, and I watched through that last fall, and I even put together a cosplay costume for Katara.
Oh, that's so cool! Wow, that is awesome. And can we just take a moment to say how cool it is that you watch Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon so that you could, like, chat with your students? Like, you deserve a round of applause right there. That is big. So cool, and I love Avatar. Like, Katara is amazing. That's really cool that you did a cosplay of her. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was watching that and thinking, what kind of different cosplays can I do? Because I do periodically go out to the sci-fi conventions when they're running. A little tough to find these days, but there are still a few of them out there. So that was one of the ones like, that's not that hard.
Yeah. I should try it sometime. I have not, tried any Avatar cosplays, even though I have wanted to, but man, that is just so cool. That is so cool. Well, awesome. Are you willing to share about some of your work and sort of like what you do? I know we've talked a little bit about script writing, but what are you working on? What's been going on, I guess, there in the writing sphere? There we go.
Well, I write science fiction, fantasy, and game lit for the most part. Neopulp has been my newest endeavor. I'll have one coming out in a anthology called Doc Saga fairly soonish, and on my Patreon page I've been writing freelance words, which is kind of funny, but it's also in the Neopulp arena. Cool. The teacher resources is kind of like one of the things is not like the others.
Yeah.
But I've got 4 out there that when I stopped teaching, I took all the stuff that I had built, because I did most of my teaching in districts that didn't have funds. And so you end up having to build a lot of your own stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I took a lot of the stuff that I built that could be adapted to other people's classes that was not like student specific.
Yeah.
Compiled them into 4 books and pitched them out into the universe for other teachers to use. Right now I have, in addition to those 4 teacher resources, I have 8 novels, and I have stories in 14 anthologies. And some of them I have more than one story in the anthologies, so you get pretty close to 20 stories out.
Wow. That is that is impressive. That's really cool.
Those have been a lot of fun. And I also recently discovered, because a friend of mine was trying to write a sort of first contact story, and she asked me if I thought Mindstorm, one of the books I have out, would be a good resource for her to see how I had handled it. And as I was thinking back through the different novels I've written, most of them are a first contact or coexistence between alien species kind of story.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I'm trying to think of the last alien read kind of thing that I read, and I honestly don't remember off the top of my head. That's pretty cool.
The script writing bit, that came in most recently. I didn't start that party until last July.
Oh, okay. Now, are you doing like your own kind of story, or is this like a completely new kind of script that you're working on?
Well, it's actually based on the novel Animal Eye. Animal Eye was released from Bear Publications last May, and last July, the publisher, Travis Perry, contacted me and asked if I thought that Animal Eye might survive transition to a comic book.
That's awesome.
That was kind of an odd question. I hadn't expected that. But when I write, I see the thing playing in my head like a little movie script. So yeah, you can take still shots, attach it to whatever's going on in the script, and good to go.
Yes, I'm the same way.
First thing I had to do is collect resources, because I used to read comic books. I was a terrifically huge X-Men fan all the way through junior high and high school. Had massive collection for a while. Haven't really read comic books and never tried to write one since then. So I contacted a friend of mine who's actually published a few of these things and asked him for some resources. And he pointed me in the direction of 7 books, 3 of which I got. And reading through those, it kind of gave you the theory behind how comic books work and how the artwork can portray some stuff but not other stuff. And then the same friend shared with me one of his old scripts so that I could see how the formatting worked. He also beta read my first effort at a script, gave me a lot of suggestions on how to fix stuff. As we were doing that, we went about the purpose of trying to scare up an artist.
I feel like that's almost like so I feel like sometimes that's almost like the hardest part, because I remember doing so much research. I feel like almost more research finding an illustrator than the actual like writing process. Well, Grant, I don't know, how long is your story though? Like, did you find that I'm not gonna say hard transition, but an interesting transition of going from like short or like story to a script?
Yeah, the novel itself is 700 pages. That works out to about 175,000 words.
Wow.
Which is double normal size for a novel. Surprised me too.
Yeah, I thought that was like I thought you were going to say like a short story. That is impressive. Wow.
So yeah, it was a monster of a book. The first thing we had to do after I figured out how to make that happen was figure out how many issues Travis wanted to do and how many pages per issue. Then start serializing the novel. So I had to break it first into the number of issues, then into the number of pages, and then into panels for each page.
Yeah. So what was that like then? Like you were saying that you see like a video in your mind of the story and such. Did you find was it easier or harder than you expected trying to take that video in your mind and make it from a novel into the actual script and seeing the panels? Did you find that difficult or anything?
Yeah, that was a bit tricky because at first I tried to do a 1-to-1 translation.
Okay.
For every action that happened in the book happened in the script,
right.
And found out pretty fast that sucker ballooned way out. And Brian, my friend who's done this before, he reminded me that no, I'm not retelling the novel in pictures. I have to edit considerably and condense some stuff down, get rid of some stuff that really isn't absolutely necessary.
Okay.
For the plot line, condensed dialogue particularly, because every word that the letterer has to put onto the page hides artwork.
Oh, I didn't think about that, because I was just about to ask like how that would, if you more or less like translated every sentence and putting that into the comic, because I can imagine that was pretty challenging, especially like you said you had to condense what they're saying, but it still makes the same point as it did in the first form of it.
Right. Yeah. It was an exercise in writing tight. How few words can you say this in?
Yeah, I could imagine. Now, is there like a cap, so to speak, on how much you can have like in a dialogue bubble or like a speech thought or anything like that? Or is it just more of, like I said, how tight can we get this to hit that same point?
I'm told that you shouldn't exceed 250 words on one page.
Oh, okay.
I shoot for a whole lot less than that, just because to be able to break a 700-page novel into 6 24-page issues, you got to lose a lot.
Yeah.
You have to simplify, like I found out pretty fast, you have to simplify fight choreography.
Okay.
Because this is game lit, there's a lot of combat happening, and so I had to condense a lot of that. Later on in the book, when the two player characters meet up with each other and they start chatting back and forth, I'm going to have to condense a whole lot of that.
Oh man.
But still somehow maintain the flavor of what's going on.
Yeah. Well, have you been happy? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
So have you been happy with how you've been doing it though? Like, do you feel there's still, like, are you just happy with it overall of of the process and everything?
I think it works. Our artist is a Filipino gentleman named Raul Cruz. Yeah, he's currently got issue 1 script.
Awesome.
And he's motoring his way through that. We've got 3 finished pages and 9 more that are in draft form. But he sometimes doesn't draw exactly what I described for the panel.
Okay.
But it still gets the idea across. He often zooms in much closer than I did. So, I've got this 30,000 foot view, and he zooms it right down to 2 characters, and it's still working. He's got a good feel for this, and the story's there, and it's coming across well.
That's awesome. I will say I found a very similar experience with my illustrator that, I'll admit now, I did not do a lot of research on my script. I was going to let her do that, but she was like, hey, this is going to save you time and, money and everything if you can just loosely break it down. So I did a very, very rough breakdown. But I thought it interesting that what I was seeing and what I put there, that she would tweak it somehow. But yeah, I found that it was also working, and sometimes almost like, I don't know if every panel or page, but that it did hit differently and hit almost better sometimes. And I wonder if that's just maybe from experience as well for them, even with us doing research beforehand. I don't know how much your illustrators worked with other people, but that's just interesting that you mentioned that, because I went through the same thing with my illustrator.
Yeah, I've even run into that phenomenon with cover artists. I work a lot with a cover artist named Matt Ostrom, and he's able to take the most bizarre, rough description that I send him, along with a bit of the story that relates to the picture I want him to do, and he turns it into an amazing piece of art. Like, wow, how did you do that? That is incredible.
I can relate so much to that, because I really feel like that was me, and that was definitely one thing I learned. What I want to do with my next story and turning into a script is like, I don't personally like writing a lot of details. I'm like, just the pretty picture is what I want, but they need the details to get the picture. But yeah, I felt my illustrator did very similar with that. Like, man, next time I was like, I need to work on that. But I was like, you did great.
Yeah, Brian K. Morris is the friend who's helping me with learning how to script things, and he said that if you need the artist to draw it, you need to describe it.
Yeah.
You can't have too much description. Let the artist tell you if it's not going to work that way, or if he's got a better idea.
That's really great advice. When you were doing the descriptions and stuff, did you include any pictures that you might have found, or any of your own artistic stuff with that or anything?
Nothing that I drew. Although the artist has since contacted me back with some preliminary sketches, like, is this what you had in mind? And if it was off some, or if I needed to clarify something, then I'd do a rough sketch and send it back.
Yeah.
But what I did do is there are some things that we were going to need a reference pic for. For example, the dog character is based on a Russian ovcharka. Huge, really huge, like 200-pound or more, huge.
Wow.
Fuzzy dog.
Yeah.
And it's not a very common breed, but he was exactly the right size and fuzz level and everything else that I needed. So I went out to the web, did a search on ovcharka, found one that looked pretty close to the one that I had described in the books. Right here, make him look like that.
Yeah.
And there were a couple other things where I was making a reference to something by its technical name, like a zucchetto, which is a clerical hat.
Okay.
And so I found a picture of that and plugged that in there. It's like, here, this is the description of that hat. And
yeah.
So that the artist is not completely lost with a what?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I included a lot of pictures for my description is mainly what I did. And I'd be like, I want this, but I want it tweaked right here and have this, or have 2 different images. Like, I want a mashup of this. So hopefully that was helpful. But I just think it's cool that you mentioned about the description thing, because that was definitely one thing that I learned. I was like, I have to get over it. I was like, I know that was part of why I wanted to write manga, was because it has all the pretty, just pictures. But I didn't realize that even with that, the description part is something you still have to do and such. So that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's really interesting. What has so far been your favorite part of the script writing, and then seeing it come to life, so to speak, on page with the illustrations?
I'm seeing Raul's art show up. He sends me the draft pictures in case anything needs tweaking before he does the final.
Okay.
And so watching how he translates that has been very fascinating. As I said, he tends to zoom in closer than I was thinking, but it really works.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to somebody that's wanting to turn in, like you are, turn their novel into a manga or a graphic novel, like what advice would you give to them, especially concerning like the script writing?
Well, I mean, the most important takeaway that I had was that a comic or manga is not a picture version of your book. There's a lot of editing that needs to happen. Things that I can do in a novel that has endless space for description and dialogue and all kinds of craziness really doesn't work in the comic mode. So everything has to be condensed or trimmed down, or the important parts have to be brought forward and some of the lesser parts have to fade a bit or disappear.
Yeah. Did you ever struggle with that, like what to keep and sort of like what to let go? Was that like a hard struggle at all?
It was at first. That first draft, I had included some stuff that I thought was important, but when Brian went back through it and did the beta read for me, he said, "Nah, you don't need that. The story makes perfectly logical sense without it." And so here is I'm working on the second script now while Raul is doing the art on the first one.
Yeah.
So we can keep a constant production line going.
Right.
So I mean, my first run through that, I took my serialization chart and wrote each panel as I had it in there. And then the next thing I did was I went back through, what do I really don't need? And if I thought I could get away without it, I turned it into a much lighter font, so it almost disappeared. But I left it there and then read back through it to see if it still made sense without those extra bits. And if it didn't make sense that way, then I put it back. And for the most part, the things that I thought needed to go away, they've stayed gone so far.
Interesting. That's a really unique way to do that and sort of let go. I feel like that'd be so hard for me to do.
Yeah, because I mean, the reason why Animal is 700 pages is I really thought it was all necessary to the story. It either built character or it provided level progression. Because Gamelit, the whole idea is that you're following the players as they play characters in a game. And so there are some things that happen so that I could justify that they moved up a level.
Yeah.
Necessary to the plot? No, not really. But for the purpose of justifying level progression, it was necessary.
Yeah. Does that gamer aspect really show in your comic? I mean, I guess I can imagine it does, but I feel like that'd be a cool aspect to see illustrated in your story.
Because we decided on only 6 issues at 24 pages a time, the total perspective of the critter characters couldn't be maintained. It would take way more real estate to be able to show all of that. So there are panels that are the animal's point of view panels, and they're marked that way for the artist. And there's a computer overlay that shows up at the top part of the panel that shows that there's the character icon, the fatigue level, the character name, and a skills drop down.
Yeah.
So you get the feel that you're looking through the character's eyes at the game scenario. But other stuff is zoomed back so that you've got an omniscient point of view, so you can do things like set a scene.
Okay.
So I mean, in the novel, I could stay within the character's POV and set the scene through dialogue and descriptive text, but that doesn't work in the manga. So I've got to pull the camera back so that you can do these establishing shots and show where you are and show what all the other characters are doing, because otherwise the critter's not always looking the right direction. Yeah,
that would definitely be hard. But I love how you're talking about that game aspect though, and having, like you said, that view you're in a game. That is really, really neat. Well, talking about that, are you able, or would you be able to maybe in the future come back and add more issues to make the world larger, so to speak, if you guys want to? Or I know that you've mentioned your crowdfunding. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Now, so would you, by chance, I guess, if this goes very successful, and hopefully it will, because it sounds really awesome, that you guys could come back and expand on the world like how you have it in the novel?
If we do, the current plan is to do 6 individual issues, then collect them into a trade paperback.
Oh, that's awesome.
If that happens, I might suggest that we do a bit of an expansion, even if it's just a few more pages, and include some of the stuff that had to get cut.
Yeah.
There are a couple of side quests that weren't necessary to the main plot moving forward, but there were those things that justified the level progression.
Right.
So, I mean, that might be fun to put back in, but I don't know if the publisher and the artist are up for that. But that might be something I suggest later.
Yeah.
When we get to the point where we're assembling it into a graphic novel or trade paperback kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, before I ask about the crowdfunding, is there anything else that you would like to share concerning script writing or anything like that?
Scriptwriting has been tricky, but I mean, really, if you do your research, so you learn what the theory behind serialized art, then that helped a lot. When Brian recommended the half dozen books that he had for me to go look up, I pulled down 3 of them from the Zon and gave a read to those, and they were mostly geared toward artists. But what that did was that it gave me an idea of what was possible and what was not. And so that helped me with the script writing because, then I knew that, I can't really have dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would hide everything, you don't see anything in the background. And that depending on the artist's foreground and background might not be possible. They may be very character driven, might be very scene driven. Right. So, that helped a lot with that.
That's awesome. And I think it's interesting that you read, that you mentioned reading books that were geared towards more artists. And I admit that is part of why I started this video series, because I'm not an artist and I'm hiring artists because I can't draw what I'm seeing in my head. And I struggled wanting to read those because I was like, well, I don't know how much I would benefit from this. But it sounds like that would be very beneficial, even though, we're hiring somebody to do the art side of things. I had not considered that, seeing how that could be very insightful and helpful, even just when doing the script portion of the story. I had not thought about that. So the crowdfunding, how is that going? Do you want to share anything about that or anything? Do you have anything open for us to go look at as well, like where we can go support you concerning the crowdfunding, or has that not officially kicked off just yet?
Hasn't started yet because we want to have the first issue mostly done, if not completely done, so that the fulfillment time is very short at the end of the crowdfunding campaign. Because I'd hate to finish it and then tell people, sorry, it's going to be another couple of months. I'd hate to do it that way. It hasn't launched yet, and I'll be announcing that through my newsletter and on social media and everywhere else I can think of when it does launch. But right now I'm taking a course on how to set up crowdfunding and actually do it in a way that might be successful. So so I'm using the time well to learn that. And so in the meantime, on social media, on my Patreon page, and through my newsletter, I'm posting occasional bits of Raoul's art, mostly unfinished paintings, so it's sort of the ash can version.
I've done the same thing.
Yeah. It's like, check this out. This is really cool. He does an excellent job of getting expressions out of even the critter characters, especially or even with the ones that are notoriously hard to get expressions out of, like birds. Yeah. Birds have their own unique body language. But he's been able to show all kinds of emotion with the bird character. And so with some of the more interesting ones that I've gotten that, it's not spoilery, so I could show it without giving away half of Rhode Island. So, I'll isolate that panel and pop it up in social media, check out what he did. Wow. And
I can relate so much to what you're saying. I relate so much to it. I feel like it's definitely a balance of how much of this art can I share without spoiling the story or spoiling just the rest of this page. That's awesome that he was able to capture, you're saying with the bird, though. That is really, really cool. Also, I'm sure many of us will appreciate that you're waiting for the time to be lesser for the crowdfunding and such, so we can all dive into it, because I'm really, really excited. So what I didn't ask this at the beginning. So what is your book about? What I realized I didn't ask. You've shared quite a few things, but what is, the blurb or unofficial blurb that you want to share with us?
Animal Eye is a story about 2 game players who are playtesting the new adult version of what had been a kid's game. And so in this game, they get to become animal companions to their human NPCs.
Whoa.
And so while they are roaming around the map, trying to figure out what's going on and helping their humans solve problems, there are maniacal killers that are incredibly hard to kill. They're going out and creating all kinds of trouble. And so ultimately you have a feisty crow and a really large dog helping their humans find the source of these maniacal killers to put a stop to them.
That sounds really, really cool. Man, that's going to look really epic illustrated.
Oh yeah, it's a real joy to see what he's coming up with when I get the draft panels, because he sends them what would be the middle of my night, and so I wake up in the morning and sometimes I got an email from him. It's like, hey, check out these next 2 pages. Cool.
Yeah, that's a great surprise to wake up to. That is really awesome. Wow. Well, where can we connect with you so that we can definitely keep up on when the crowdfunding goes live and just see whatever you're sharing online? Because I know I personally would love to follow you, and I'm sure I'm not the only one.
That'd be great. The fastest and easiest way to find me is on my webpage, CKOEPP.com.
Okay.
From there, you can sign up for my newsletter. It's in the right sidebar of my landing page on my website. When you sign up, you get a bit of free flash fiction called Old School Moves, a tale of how a convention used an unusual form of transportation to get everyone to the site, and it doesn't always work well.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cindy, for chatting with us. I love just hearing about your experience and what you've learned, and I really appreciate you sharing with us. I know just things that you shared, I know it's definitely going to be very helpful and beneficial to me, especially when I start working on my second story, because I've worked a little bit on it, but I have not gotten to the script portion, and I'm not rushing it. So thank you so much for chatting with us, and I am just really excited for all that you're doing.
Well, thanks for inviting me to come in. Appreciate the opportunity to share and to chat with you for a bit.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, and I guess we will chat more soon and keep up in the update, or in the know, I should say, about your upcoming graphic novel. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Bye. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that video, that chat with Cindy. I had a blast chatting with her. Definitely go check out the links down below in the description. Totally go support her. I'm really, really excited to see her graphic novel. It sounds amazing. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Be sure to hit that bell icon so you don't miss next week's video. Next week, I am going to be interviewing a mangaka who's going to be sharing about her storyboarding process and just what she has learned. I am super pumped. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Bye!